CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Host Glen Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Glen Alexander, and on this episode of today's podcast, I'm joined by Jake Carlson, fellow Oklahoma State alum, who I don't think is too proud as I am right now to say we're Oklahoma State alums with the football season being 2-2 through 4 games. That's how records work, by the way. But still, I know that was my dad. I know my dad's like, yeah, 2-2. Yeah, that means they played 4. But with that being said here, yes, 2-2 through 4 games, 0-1 in conference, 1-1 at home, 1-1 away. That's how math works. Lost 2 in a row, though. So Jake, what's been, because we can get to the Gundy stuff, we can get to everything going on here, we can get to
Sure.
how you're doing, we can talk about the weather, but I think let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
What do you think needs to happen here for this program going forward?
People are going to be shocked I'm going to say this, but I think we probably need just a whole new offensive staff. And that's not to say that, I dislike Casey Dunn or dislike our running backs coach or dislike our quarterbacks coach or whatever. That's just to say that's the only thing that's realistically going to happen anyways. Because if we're being honest, that's going to happen this summer, right? Like Casey Dunn's probably gone. If anything, if he's not too prideful or too upset with his current situation, they might say, hey, stay associate head coach, go down to receivers. We're going to hire an offensive coordinator. That could happen. It could. And I don't want to rule it out because I don't know, I'm not privy to their relationship. So I don't know what it's like behind closed doors with them. It could be completely everything's great and they leave football to football and so be it. That's probably what I would like to see happen. I would like to see Casey Dunn stay. But the program just needs a refresh. I mean, the only thing that would save us from not needing a refresh is if Mike Gundy was Bill Snyder's age and we'd feel bad if we said fire this old man.
Yeah.
Like that's the only that's the only comparison I have where it's like, get this old guy out of here. But like we can say it about Gundy because he's not 86 and
he's younger than my dad. So
yeah.
We're the same age. I am so annoyed by the quarterback situation for Oklahoma State because that has been Gundy's like calling card, my opinion, every single year. It's been Gundy's had this guy at the helm. This guy's come in and been primarily the starter. There is the Spencer Sanders year after Cornelius was gone. That was like, okay, Spencer's going to take over. There is the Rudolph year where he comes in for the last 3 games of the season for Oklahoma State after we have Dax Garman and others basically at the helm. And that, of course, led to Mason Rudolph starting for a bunch more years after that. But then there's, you go back a little bit more. There's Brandon Whedon, Zach Robinson. Like there's a lineage of quarterbacks who have played for Oklahoma State under Gundy who have been pretty darn good. I don't think this season's going to go down as one of those seasons. We can already say right now it's not. And through the Gundy era, through the first 3 games, this is the least amount of touchdowns an Oklahoma State team has scored since Gundy's become a head coach since his first year at OSU. 7 touchdowns is the least amount of touchdowns. It is the amount, by the way. So we've scored 7 touchdowns through 3 games. Now, I know yesterday we played a 4th. I'm not factoring that one in. I don't have the stats on that one right in front of me. But I was curious here, where the team totals are through 3 games.
Yeah.
7. Last year, scored 19 touchdowns through the first 3 games. Now, I know the opponents are a little bit different, but we played Arizona State last year. We also played 2 other, kind of FCS, FBS level teams. So I don't think I'm throwing something weird at the wall here. I think this is definitely like you can see how bad we are easily.
We were probably better than all 4 teams that we played. at least on paper, right? And also according to Las Vegas. So take that for what it's worth. We've been favored in every single game that we've played.
Except for the Iowa State game this past weekend.
We were favored when the line opened. I want to say it was like 3.5 or something like that. But
by kick it switched to the other way around. So yeah,
interesting. I could be wrong, but that's neither here nor there. I want to elaborate on that a little bit because I was thinking about like the way our offense has changed over the last couple of years. I think we've all kind of seen it, right? We've all kind of seen the offensive identity shift. And I really just wanted to go through some of our coaches because those guys don't lend themselves to the offense we're running right now. And I know people are probably like, well, that's a weird route to go. But I think this has more of an indication over everything else. So we have Charles Dickey. If you want to type his name into Twitter and see what pops up, be my guest. It's going to be some pretty damning things that I'm sure some people have said about him. The only thing that I can attest to is that our offensive line has not gotten better. However, the other thing I can attest to is that our offensive line has never been that great. I was talking to one of my buddies yesterday, and the most successful player that Oklahoma State had come out of their program outside of the wide receiver position is Russell Okung. In my opinion, that's what I would say. He was the number 6 overall pick in like 2013, something like that.
I think it was
maybe a little
like 08, but yeah.
So, like, to me, I know that we're just not going to have a great wide receiver or great offensive line. 2010, split the difference. Number 6 overall pick, 2010. We also had Tevin Jenkins, who was taken, and that has not worked out because that team is atrocious. But this is not an NFL podcast. So, the coach's room. This is the Tim Rattay thing. Okay, this is I got this idea because I was thinking about our quarterback play. He's been our quarterback coach since 2020. Tim Rattay also left Louisiana Tech and held the division record for the most average passing yards in a game at 386 and total offensive yards with over 12,500. That's when he graduated college. I say that to say, who in the hell thinks that Tim Rattay wants to be running this offense we're running right now? There's one coach. Here's the other one, Casey Dunn. One of the, at the time, probably a couple years ago, I would say probably before COVID, was a top 5 wide receivers coach in the country with the way that he was producing talent. There is no doubt in my mind that we are not running Casey Dunn's offense. Could he be not that great at picking out plays from the offensive scheme that we have? Sure. I'll give you that. But if it were up to Tim Rattay and Casey Dunn, they wouldn't be running this offense. And this isn't any slight on Tim Rattay, but do you think Tim Rattay is as good as coaching bootleg, 3 and 5 step bland drops? No. Because he was out there throwing for 400 yards a game in college. That's what he knows. He probably would have been great with Mason Rudolph. All right, so there's 2. There's a couple others. I mean, the running backs coach, whatever. And then the tight ends, whatever. Sorry. But those 2 main positions, I feel like Oklahoma State has always had really solid running backs on the roster no matter what. Like, I feel like we've always been able to have, whether it's Chuba, whether it's Justice Hill, whether it's Jalen Warren. Now it's going to be Ollie Gordon, who I'm sure we'll talk about later. And even before that, LD Brown was sprinkled in there. We had Chris Carlson. I mean, there were guys that were coming in and out that were just really freaking good football players. And most of the
Kendall
time it didn't
Hunter
work out
is
because they were
another
Kendall
guy.
Hunter.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it didn't work out, usually because they got hurt or, the offense was a little different. It might not have suited their skill set. Like Chris Carlson, for example. I mean, I remember seeing him in college and I was like, oh, this guy's going to be a great NFL running back. But he just doesn't work for what we do right now. And lo and behold, I know he got hurt, but he ended up being pretty freaking good. So I bring those up because the offense is clearly the bigger issue, the more glaring issue. We can talk about the defense in a second. But the offense to me has been slowly declining over the last couple of years. I think part of that is due to quarterback play. I think part of that is Gundy probably saw an opportunity to implement more of his offense. Once Jurisic left, I feel like he probably tried to do a little bit with what's his face, the guy that left for Rutgers. I'm blanking on his name.
Sean Gleason.
Yeah, Sean Gleason. I feel like he tried to implement it then, but we also had one of the best running backs in the league in the country that year, so it kind of balances itself out. And now I just feel like we're running the ball a lot. When it doesn't feel like our coaches are necessarily equipped to run that system of offense, nor is our team. Our team's not equipped because, go back to what I said earlier, we've never had a great offensive line. And that's okay because we've made it work because we have great receivers, we have quarterbacks that can move a little bit, and we have running backs that are usually really good. And usually there's some Blake Jarwin sprinkled in there somewhere. This year, there are zero dudes. Zero. We have zero dudes on our team, and Ollie Gordon is maybe a half because, he just doesn't get the ball enough. So it's hard for him to even be a contributor. But I saw Dakota's tweet today, and he summed it up perfectly, where he said, if everybody in the class fails, it's the teacher's fault. It's not the kid's fault. And right now, our entire team is not good. I don't want to call them bad because that seems mean, but I'm sure I'll say bad or sucks or trash or something later. But the team is just not very good, and there's not a single position we have that stands out. Our best player, is it Kendall Daniels? Not our best player, but one of our highest recruits on the team, probably the highest recruit on the team. He was getting torched yesterday. Torched. I just remember seeing him chase. He was just if you're chasing people, if that's the time I see you, yikes.
He's also playing safety, so he's not lying. Yeah, try to.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah. Because I think last year he played more a strong safety. I feel like he was coming up in the box a little bit more last year with Derek Mason. Regardless, this is the worst Oklahoma State team from a talent standpoint I think Gundy's probably ever had. I would love for someone to point out to me, but the talent clearly has not projected the way that they expected it to. It usually we have something to hang our hat on, right? I feel like usually, even when we had freaking Glenn Spencer, we're like, hey, it's a big game. At least we know we'll get up. We might give up 31 points, but at least we're going to score 45 and probably get a pick six, right? That's how a Glenn Spencer game went. And I knew that. But the defense clearly isn't good. And that was something that people told themselves it was good. And I think they told themselves that because the offense was bad. So they're like, we have to be good at something. And I'm like, we're not. We're just not. Because the Arizona State win is proving to be fruitless. They're horrible.
Well, they just played USC and they haven't played anyone besides us in USC. So, I'll agree with you on that one. TBD on Arizona State. They could look okay by the end of the year. They could probably win 6 games, but you're 500. You win 6 games now, so it's not necessarily a huge thing to hang your hat on. Opponent wise, what I struggle with is the contingency plan at quarterback. From what you're saying, like what was the idea going in? Because if Spencer Sanders should come back to Oklahoma State this year, that would have been his 6th year of college football at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So not really like in the plans. I mean, if you're thinking, okay, we get Sanders on the roster, et cetera, like you'd want to have him in the building theoretically for 4 years. You probably
Yeah.
know cap is 5, redshirting a year. So 6 you're not planning for. So then
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking it was Rangel. Okay, well, you know what? Rangel so far this season, he is not the same type of quarterback whatsoever that Spencer Sanders is. He's not the same status, not the same size, not the same whatever. But he is just also not, he doesn't have any of the mobility that we would need at that position to make our current offense set up the way it is to keep succeeding. Because when Sanders went down last year, it was okay. Are you still going to do this whole dual threat quarterback where you can run some option plays or you can at least buy yourself some more time in the
Mm-hmm.
pocket? Ringo, as a true freshman, could not. And as now a sophomore, also cannot. So I'm curious what the idea was there because if you're going to build your team up in a certain way, right? So Gundy has year over year built up a team to be a pass happy offensive style. If you have Todd Munkin, if you have Dana Holgerson, if you have Sean Gleason, if you have Mike Gersich, it's always been a pass happy team. It's never been like a Big Ten balanced football team. We've never tried to run anyone over, really. We've
Mm-hmm.
been able to because the team's been so good at passing the ball that running backs who have had a lot of talent have come onto the roster and done really well. But what was the plan? Because you're no one's gonna be able to tell me that that Nick Saban goes out and scouts the top 1 through 5 quarterbacks every single year and offers the 1 through 5 quarterbacks every single year without even looking at any of their film, without seeing how
Yeah.
they would fit into a Nick Saban style offense, or without some plan of going, you know what? I can tell you right now, after Spencer Sanders leaves the building, we're going to go back to our pro style quarterback pass happy offense because it's not what we were running with Sanders. Like Sanders,
No.
the biggest annoyance, the biggest pain you and I talked about on several podcasts that I would talk about with anyone else is, man, this is just a weird offense. Like I think the issue is that it's a weird offense. The Jim Knowles defense year, we go to the Big 12. It's like, okay, we think Sanders is injured, but we also think the offense just kind of sucks here and there when it really shouldn't. Like it's got pro receivers on it,
But the
you
line was
know.
really bad that year. That offensive
Right.
line was horrible.
Right. But that was like how we're building a team
Yeah.
like that where
Right.
we may not have a drafted left tackle, Tevin Jenkins, Russell Okung,
Yeah.
right? Like we may not have a
Right.
drafted left tackle, but Tevin they get drafted second round, I believe, maybe third. Yeah, I mean that's not a 6th or 7th round. It's not a UDFA guy, undrafted free agent. That is
Mm-hmm.
that's a top 100 player in the NFL getting top 100 guy in the college getting drafted, right? Point being, there had to be something going on where this wasn't the idea, and I just would love to know what that was because I don't think you can be a head coach at a college football program now and go, you know what? We're just going to keep recruiting the best guys we can and get them in the door because for so long it wasn't like that, right? If that was just the idea from the get go and it was like, hey, we're going to just line up 11 out there on each side of the ball, see the best players we got, we're going to line them up, and no matter where we're going to play them, I just clearly we're playing J.W. Walsh in certain packages and Mace Ruoff in other packages on purpose to have the
Mm-hmm.
offense oriented one way or the other because we knew what we could do and we couldn't do. So what was the plan at quarterback? And I'm hoping that Zane Flores is the plan going forward. But I honestly, if I'm Zane Flores, aren't you looking at like I don't want to get completely off track here, but if you're an offensive guy on the OSU's roster right now or looking at OSU, are you not going, wait, what am I looking at here? Why would I come back?
I'd be like, peace. I'm going.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And for those of you that don't like Casey Dunn, if you don't feel for him in this situation, I mean he's getting just jerked around. the whole time. And like I'm going back and looking at this. So Alan Bowman, if you haven't looked at the stats yet, do you know how many times he threw the ball yesterday?
No.
48. That's a lot.
Yeah.
He threw the ball 48 times. He had 23 completions, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, 278 yards. Ollie Gordon averaged more rushing yards per attempt than Alan Bowman did passing the ball per attempt. By a whole yard. Like, it feels like every game we watch offensively, they're like, all right, fans, this is what you want. Here you go. And they just lay crap on the floor. They're like, here it is. Look what we've created. It's like a 3-year-old walking up with their picture. And they're like, look at this. And in your head, you go, that sucks. Like, that's what it feels like. Because, like, why is Alan Bowman throwing the ball 48 times?
Well, one would say because we actually had a chance to come back in the game and win. Like there's no way he's throwing it 48 times if we're getting just absolutely just blown out like we were the week before against USA.
Also, what has Gundy watched our team this year? It makes me think that he just stands on the sidelines with his eyes closed. And he's like closing his eyes and he's just pointing on a board and he's like, that one. It's just, I don't know. It's frustrating because you could kind of see this coming from a mile away. With like, I remember after that 2021 year, I was pretty nervous because we had a lot of seniors leave that year. And now we don't go get transfer portal guys. And if we do, they're like D3. We have a lot of guys leave. And then if we do replace those guys, we replace them with worse players. Like, because what? Is it Alex Cobb? Is that his first name? Alex Cobb, right?
Yeah.
He leaves to go to USC. We were never going to be able to probably pay him whatever USC paid him or offer what USC offered.
Mason Cobb. I thought you were talking about
Mason
one of our old quarterbacks. Yeah, Mason Cobb. Yeah.
Mason Cobb. And then we fill his position with Justin Wright. Like, it's not close. It's really not close. And does that work around? Is this an indictment on Justin Wright? No. But who would you rather have?
Not even close. I think it's very telling how you've got former Oklahoma State football players tweeting out about how important the NIL is. NIL department, NIL program is. That's Brock Martin, by the way. I mean, I'm not holding back names here. That's all. I mean, it's his tweets on Twitter. Go look it up. But what I would say is, I'm very curious where the football program goes from here because this season tickets sold out. Several games this year I would not have thought of being sold out have been sold out before we played them. I think the K-State game might be sold out. I think homecoming might be sold out already, etc. And we're talking in a stadium that seats more than 50,000 people when there are other Big 12 stadiums that do not seat that many and are not getting sold out and are having more success.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about Kansas, and I know Kansas is literally like the team today mentioned because they're now 4-0, but I think they play Texas next week, so I won't be able to say that much longer after this. But also, like, what are we doing recruiting wise? Like, why are we not able to capitalize on the momentum we have? You and I have talked about this year over year. You've got Dax Hill's brother, or you got Dax Hill, Justice Hill's brother, in state. Don't really try to go out and recruit him. I can try to defend Gundy all I want to on that one. Oh, he was going to Michigan from the get go. Was going to be close, etc. But like you show up, you know, you do
Yeah.
stuff. It's stuff that really is annoying when you're looking at the talent currently on the roster, and you're like, well, you know what? If we're this good as a program at turning James Washington from a 2-star athlete into a 5-star pro prospect, now granted, it's not panned out the way we wanted to, but if we're that good, where the guy can win back to back, he can win a Blitnikoff Award. We're gonna have Justin Blackman win back to back. We can have Des Bryant. We can have all these guys come through. What happens when we get a 4-star in the building or a couple 4-stars in the building? How good are they going to be? Oh, Tylan Wallace, great success story coming out of OSU. Maybe the Ravens aren't using him right, but you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many other points I could make here on
Mm-hmm.
guys coming into Oklahoma State, and why don't we start like we're playing with the bar. We keep having to raise it. I always think of like the Ninja Warrior thing when they have like the big, huge arm bar and they have to like kind of,
Yeah.
just take their body weight and their whole momentum just to kind of raise it back out and up
Mm-hmm.
and another rung. Like, we're starting on the lowest one, and these prospects are like getting better and better and better in the system every single year to the point where some are getting drafted because we're not starting at the 2 rungs from the top. Now, those you would say have the hardest 2 rungs left to go, but it's annoying, really, really annoying to look at this Oklahoma State team and go, yeah, this is what the rest of the season looks like. Like, are we gonna like where's the next win coming in the schedule? And honestly, after yesterday and knowing what Iowa State's record was going into that game and seeing that over Oklahoma State's last 10 games, we are 3-7 and have scored less than 20 points per game on average, which is less than Iowa, the team that's made fun of consistently for scoring no points. Iowa scored more points on average over the last 10 games than Oklahoma State has. Like, when you look at offensive inefficiency, it's now Oklahoma State. We could put some clause in the contract going forward for Gundy saying you got to score more than 25 a game because we're now in the same area as we would talk about Iowa,
Can I
offensively.
can I ask you this? If you are Casey Dunn with the offense and these last 2 years are being pinned all on you, basically, for us sucking, what is the reason?
Hmm.
Because it like there's a really common denominator between the last 2 seasons of when we've sucked at offense. And I don't understand how this just doesn't seep into people's heads because there's a direct replication of this going on with another team right now.
I mean, you go ahead and tell me what we're pinning this on, because to me we're pinning this on the lack of talent on the field.
Inconsistent
It's
quarterback play.
you don't lose
It's
a game to Kansas State 49-0 and then come back and talk to me how that our defense sucks. Yeah, K-State scored 49 on us. Pretty evident there.
we
How do
scored
we not score
0.
a point? But that would be my thing. How do we not show life? Right? Like, you talk about, some of these NFL scores. It's NFL Sunday when we're recording this. You see these NFL scores go by and you're like, well, you know what? At least they showed some heart. They showed some faith. They were running out
Sure.
there. Cardinals just beat the Cowboys, and for the 2 weeks previously, people were making fun of the Cardinals because I bet they're tanking. I was making fun of the Cardinals because I was like, oh, I bet they're tanking. It's right off the whole season. It's done. Said that on the last podcast I did. Cardinals through the red light. You just already know they're gone. They're gone for Caleb Williams. Well, they just beat the Dallas Cowboys, who had the best point differential in the NFL history since like 1970, going into week 3.
Yeah.
But point being is Cardinals showed some effort, showed some faith, showed some like real just grinding out. Did Oklahoma State, just as a football program, not saying as NFL teams, not trying to compare there, just as a football program, look like we were really showing out against South Alabama? Like, you know what? I would rather lose to South Alabama 40-7 and go for it every 4th down once we're down. Like,
Yeah.
not punt it, not try to like, what are you saving face for? It's at home non-conference opponent that didn't, and the opponent that we're facing did not exist when Gundy became a head coach. I don't know how, like, 20 years ago, I know Gundy's been a head coach for a while, so that doesn't really ring true as much as I want it to really be stuck. But what are we doing? Right? Like, why not go, you know what? We can afford to have Zane Flores in there for three
Mm-hmm.
downs. Maybe we can't because he's not like up to speed on the roster or whatever.
Sure.
But you know
Sure.
what? Let's try a couple jet sweeps. Let's really just mix it up in there.
Something else. Like,
Just some. My dad said this when I was watching the game with him yesterday. One thing that he noticed when the first couple plays of Oklahoma State versus Iowa State in the game, and then we kind of stopped talking about it because it just was very apparent how much motion that Iowa State does on offense before a play starts. How much motion they do of misdirection stuff, of guys moving around, etc. They do when they're doing a normal running play or a passing play or whatever out of their formations than what we do. And it's pretty jarring when you look at a game like that. Oh, what are we doing versus them?
you know what we used to do? That, I mean, go watch, you know this. Go watch Miami. Go watch San Francisco. Go watch the best teams in the league. I mean, that's all they do is motion. The best offenses in college football, they motion. The thing that OSU has, and the thing is why I put a little asterisk with Casey Dunn, is he has had last year and this year of the worst quarterback play since Mike Gundy became head coach. Like we're talking almost 20 years of quarterbacks. And the only year that people could say, I mean, okay, here you go. JW Walsh starts on this team tomorrow if he's in college, right? Tomorrow. Like it's not even close. It's not even close. And JW Walsh was supposed to be the starter on that really bad team, 2014, that had the quarterback problems. But he got hurt. He was the plan at quarterback, and he got hurt. So that one, I kind of, I'll be tickled if you can name me a worse quarterback room in a Power 5 school than this one. But there's another team that is also experiencing the exact same thing that we are, kind of, and it's Alabama. They're experiencing very similar to the same thing. Now, I'm going to add a couple of very large caveats to this. But like when Gundy came out and said, well, Alabama's running 3 quarterbacks, shut up, dork. Shut up. Why don't shut up. Like, I know you're trying to be funny. You know how many 5 stars Alabama has on their roster? 18.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, yeah.
And it's like, sure, Mike Gundy, if you were out there recruiting your tail off and we had a really good defense and you wanted to hang your hat on 3 quarterbacks because you were just pretty unsure, you can do that. But who's the one team Alabama lost to this year? Oh, the one with the quarterback.
Yeah,
like, we know
that to me is yeah.
But like Quinn Ewers, he could take over tomorrow at OSU and we'd be better. Like we'd be better.
Well, I mean, but of course.
Like but I'm just like, there is no contingency plan at quarterback. The only contingency plan at quarterback that it seems like right now is Gunner. That's it. Because, like you said, our offense now lends itself more to a quarterback that can move. We only have one that can move.
Yeah. And it's Gunner. It's not Bowman after yesterday. I mean, he does have a touchdown run on his record now. Props. But it's not.
He's lost some steps. Let's just, like, he's gotten older. He's been hurt. Like, I get it. He used to be able to move better than this, I will say. But it's just not there anymore. And I don't think he's like the worst decision to go with that quarterback, to be fair. Like, for what we want to do, I mean, for how pathetic it is, like, is anybody going to be able to come in and make this better? Like, we're not any better with Rangel. We're not any better with Gunner. And we're probably not any better with Zane Flores, because everywhere, like, if they threw Zane Flores out there, he'd get folded like a chair because they just can't block. Like, I'd rather Alan Bowman be out there and take the hits.
Fair. I would love to see Zane Flores just go out there, just see what we got though, because if I'm worried about him transferring this offseason, rather just at least see what he looks like.
You see what I'm saying? Like, they need a full. I mean, the house needs to be uprooted and torn down because I hear people. I've heard the word depth a lot across those good teams. Like when people were talking about Texas this year, who I still think will lose a game, but they talked about how their depth is much better.
Yeah.
Which I think we've seen. Oklahoma is the other team. Their depth much better. I heard Joel Klatt say that he talked about how like OU would get killed in the fourth quarter last year, and I remember that because I remember we came back against them. We just spotted them 28 points in the first quarter. So like I remember those things, and what have those teams done? Those teams have got depth. How do you get depth? You go into the transfer portal. If you want to know somebody else who is also reaping what they sow in terms of this, go look in Clemson and ask those people if they're happy what he's doing when all of his players leave and he doesn't bring anybody in. When I'm sure Clemson has a line out the door to play there. Like, that's probably why they don't have a good guy at wide receiver right now. Their line's not what it used to be. They have DB problems. They have pass rush problems. They're experiencing a very similar thing that we are, and it's becoming precipitous. Where we're both 2-2 now. Clemson has obviously lost to better teams than we have, and they still have a 5-star quarterback on their roster and that kind of stuff. But at one point, we were pretty close, right? Like OSU and Clemson were pretty close there until Clemson took that next step when they got Deshaun Watson. That was the next iteration of Clemson, was the quarterback to kind of change the culture, and then Trevor Lawrence did as well. Because like they had Taj Boyd, they had CJ Spiller, but the whole thing similar to Georgia, where it was like with Mark Richt, those teams were winning 10 games a year. You know what happened? They fired their coach. They fired their coach at the right time for not keeping up with those expectations. And we have dug ourselves too deep with a $35 million state money buyout for this fool. And we're going to be bad for the next couple of years because of it. Because there is no plan. There is no plan. There's no plan. The only plan is if Gundy immediately switches his thinking about the transfer portal. That's it.
Well, okay. There is something though that in me wants to at least say this about Gundy. Last year going into it, we were at one point, weren't we 6-0? Yeah, I mean 5-1, right? Like coming around to this season, I think everyone should have had a little bit, including myself. I'm saying this, and said, "Wait, Bowman played college football against us in 2017." Right? I should have been looking at it a little bit more and gone, "Is this the guy I want a quarterback? The guy who played against us like going on now 6+ years ago?" Now when he played against us looked amazing. You'd figure that time in between would mean that he'd only be getting better, but probably not keeping up with everyone else getting better because he didn't go to the pros, because he didn't start at
Right.
Michigan. And
Right.
also because at the end of the day, he transferred to us. Like, I don't want to say that we're bad, and you should know we're bad when you transfer into us, but anyone who was looking around saw the Wisconsin game into last year in the bowl game, saw the amount of guys that were transferring out of Oklahoma State's team last year as well too, that were high quality, good guys on the roster. Now, did we get a Michigan State running back transfer? Yes. Did we get a couple of other wide receiver transfers? Yes. But when Trace Ford, Mason Cobb left, it was a little bit like, okay, what's going on here defensively? And it made me think, okay, offensively next year, this has got to be the Ollie Gordon show. It has to be, because he's the guy who gave me a lot of hope last year, during the season and all type of stuff. And he's the guy who I ended the season going, there's the hope. There's the hope I got for next year. It's Ollie Gordon, Jaden Nixon a little bit, and Garrett Rangel with another year under his belt, because this was before I even knew Alan Bowman could transfer to Oklahoma State, or was thinking, or was where we were looking at transfer quarterback. Now I think it's the time to go. Garrett Rangel starts for Oklahoma State for the rest of the season, because Alan Bowman, all due respect, props on transferring to Oklahoma State, props on giving her off the program. I don't think that you're playing that poorly. I would have much, much, much rather you started week 1, 2, 3 and played every single snap, because a lot of the snaps I saw yesterday made me go, oh, his timing's just a little bit off. Oh, he's, with the receiver. Oh, it's just a little bit of rust, whatever. But now that we're 2-2, and I'm basically looking down the schedule going, the easiest team that we play going forward here is K-State, Cincinnati. I mean, these are not teams that I'm not saying KU. They're undefeated currently, and they look pretty good.
K-State's 3-1, and they
They
lost
don't look that
at
bad either. They lost on a last
no,
second 60
field
some yard
goal.
field goal to Missouri at Missouri, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm really, but what I'm getting at is we're done with the easy opponents. So
Until we
now,
play BYU.
I mean, the last game of the season that was sold out, by the way, just in case anyone's curious, there are 8 tickets left on Oklahoma State's site for the K-State game, the next home game.
They're probably the worst game on our schedule, right? Like left, because
BYU.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because West Virginia's not awful.
No,
I mean, they've been
I
playing
thought
better
they
than
were going to
us.
be real. I thought they were going to be real bad. They're not. They're not real bad.
They're
just
3-1 and lost to Penn State, which tells us nothing. Because we would also lose to Penn State. So, I mean, I think, I went and looked at the transfer portal stuff, because there was this big kicker. So in terms of national rank for all commits, we are 58th. We are 10th in the Big 12, which is 7 slots lower. We were 3rd in 22, which was kind of the inception of the transfer portal. We went down 10 to 10, or we went down from 3 to 10. That's not good. The highest currently rated player that we've gotten recently is Zane Flores, who's a 3-star. And this is, I'm looking on ON3 because they're really good with transfer rankings and all that stuff. In terms of transfers, we lost Caleb Etienne. Could probably use him this year.
We lost him, by the way, to BYU.
To BYU, yeah. And he's from
that wasn't
Louisiana.
that odd to me. Yeah, but Caleb, when he transferred, I wasn't like, oh man, we're losing him to USC or whatever. I was
That's
like,
fair.
BYU, okay. But go ahead. Yeah.
We got a couple guys from Tulsa. Elijah Collins, who apparently wasn't that great at Michigan State. He was 3rd string, I think. But they usually have decent backs. So,
by the way, I did call him Nick Collins. It's Elijah Collins. Thank you.
This Arlen Bruce kid, I don't think he's played because I think he was gambling on football games. I think that's why he's sitting out. Or I haven't seen him. Have you? Has he caught a pass?
No, he's not. He's not playing. He's still on the roster, I believe, as far as gets a scholarship. But I think the idea is hopefully he can come back next year. At this point, I mean, we're 4 games into the season. What do we?
Yeah. Bryson Green left to go to Wisconsin. John Paul Richardson left to go to TCU. Stephon Johnson left to go to Houston. We had some guys leave to go to Tulsa. Thomas Harper went to Notre Dame. I wonder if he's playing. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I think this is the other thing is like I don't know if those names stayed. I don't know if we'd necessarily be any better, right? Like
Wait, hang on. No, I mean, I think we'd be better. Not we might have beat Iowa State because we lost them by 7, but I think we'd be better. More talent on the roster. I mean, if Thomas Harper plays, like maybe he gets an I mean, I'm willing to go. I think would be better if we had kept
I
guys
think
on our roster.
I think we'd be better, but like unless Spencer Sanders stays and is healthy, I mean, it's offensively at least. Sorry, but under sub 50% isn't cutting it to John Paul Richardson.
Fair. No, it's
Because that's why you always draft a wide receiver in fantasy with a good quarterback. It just, like they can only do so much. So I think we're at a point now where we have to make a decision. And it's been nice to see the NIL support that I've been seeing coming around and kind of some call outs. But was it Brock Martin that said it doesn't matter if you're not going to use it? It
I
was
don't
like,
remember who said that, but that sounds right. That's kind of sounds like it was what he was getting at, to be honest.
yeah, it like NIL is just here. What are we supposed to? We can't do anything. There's nothing. There's nothing that we can do. Here you go. This is what he said. NIL does not equal wins. NIL gives us a better chance against the blue blood programs in recruiting. The rich will get richer and we get left behind if people don't start stepping up to the plate. If this doesn't make sense to you, feel free to message me. I mean, that's he's saying, "Hey, our coach doesn't recruit with NIL money, by the way." Like he's waving a big flag. He's in a highlighter vest. He's like, "Hey, we don't do that here. That's why we're not good." Because he's right. He's right because Oklahoma State should be at the point where they're pulling a disgruntled 4-star off Texas's O-line because he's not getting to play. So he comes to Oklahoma State because he gets to play. That's where we should be at. That's the lane. We're not Alabama. We're Kentucky. We're Kentucky. Kentucky has had a good football program over the last couple of years because they have gone out and gotten guys. I mean, they went and got Devin O'Leary from NC State, who is said to be an NFL quarterback. I didn't see it, but he's better than anybody else we have on our roster. Like, we didn't go get a quarterback. We got Alan Bowman. No offense to him, but there were multiple names on that list that, I mean, Washington State, do we want to bring that one up? They got Cam Ward. They're a ranked football team now. They're probably going to be top 15 next week. Like, there were so many avenues that we could have gone. And if you're going to tell me that Washington State has better NIL than we do, no, they just have a coach that uses it.
I struggle to understand the NIL. So on this perspective, on this part of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can answer this for me. Maybe you know more about the NIL than I do. It sounds like you do. So when Gundy is going to recruit, or a head coach, period. Let's take Gundy out of it.
Mm-hmm.
When a head coach is going to Jay Carlson, I'm with XY University. Would love to have you come play for me. If you can come play for me and sign for this season, you will get the like. Is there nothing like that, and it's all some other third party is talking to, or is this something that the coach walks in and has the information available to him? Because I thought this was all like third party agent type of stuff, where basically you can offer a guy, and then after he's offered, then other stuff can come in. It doesn't have to go through the head coach, because that seems like that give head coach a ton of power and also a
They
ton of liability.
NIL, like, it's basically, yeah, they have a pot. but that's literally what it is, and it's funded usually by boosters. That's it, right? Like, we can be OSU boosters if we donate $2, right? Like that.
Sure, but like, are if we donate $2, then are we able to go to recruit and go, "Hey, I saw what you offered. We want to send our money to you that we donate." You know what I mean? Like, how does that part
Yeah.
work? How does the basketball team take a photo at a dealership where it looks like every single basketball player is getting a car? How
Hmm.
are photos of Kendall Daniels and other players on the team taking photos at dealerships with a car? Whereas that's posted from like an Oklahoma State like sponsored or all the Twitter stuff now is just all bizarre to me anyway. So I'm not sure, but it looks like it's through Oklahoma State in some form or fashion, right?
Hmm.
Facilitated that
It's
way,
it's
posted
some
with a purpose, etc.
it's the use of marketing basically to drive up revenue, and they give them that revenue in response. And it's like even Shador Sanders, for example, he got money for going to Colorado, and he was just going with his dad. It's not like it took much convincing. He still got money
No,
for it.
no, but like what I'm asking maybe too granular here of like and not really matter at all, but I'm just
Hmm.
curious how when we're talking about Gundy doesn't go out there with the money.
Hmm.
Well, then are we saying that Saban, or whatever, Cam Ward from Washington State is going out there with the money and going, "Hey, you are a 3-star player, and in my head, I'm saying we can offer you this much amount max."
Yeah.
But Gundy's not. Gundy's just going, "Nope, come to Oklahoma State, and whatever we can do, we'll off whatever money is out there. We'll talk about that later." Right? Is that the idea here?
It's either that or he's severely lowballing people.
Okay.
Um, and based off his political views, I can't imagine that he is in any realm of the area of wanting to give college athletes money. Okay. So I'm just gonna leave that there. Everyone can digest that, take it in, let it move through your bowels and move it back out. But I'm just gonna leave that there, okay? Because he's been pretty clear that he is not up with the times in terms of anything. I mean, like, bro, how can you hate the transfer portal? How? The transfer portal is there to help you, the little guys. Like, and he's just like, nah. Like, what an idiot! What an idiot! He's an idiot. Like it not in everything he does in this sense, but that completely just it blows my mind that he is proving incapable to be able to handle this program and move it through NIL, and then we're also going to have to deal with him moving it through conference realignment. And there is no reason right now that this person, the things that he believes and how he acts, and we're saying this because we have proof that I don't. There's no reason that I should trust him to be able to navigate these waters. None. Because if he's as tone deaf and just like ignorant to wear an OAN shirt and
Yeah.
think that everything's just gravy, and he's also as tone deaf and ignorant to say that I don't like the transfer portal, like
Well, then he's not going to get. But he
how, and that's how you know his seat's not hot. It's
my
ice
thing
cold.
is that we know he's getting recruits still. So how like in the age of this, you
Yeah.
know, how does how does the guy really get recruits in the age of NIL if he's not recruiting with NIL? Like
Because
because we're
you get 3-star recruits, you pay 3-star money.
okay.
That's he doesn't want to pay 5-star money for anybody. He wants to pay 3-star money to everybody. And that's why we don't get those guys. I mean, the days of Jeremy Pruitt passing out money in McDonald's bags is gone. You can do it for like in the wide open. I mean, there were rumors that the freshman quarterback that went to Tennessee, I don't know if this has been confirmed, but the Nico kid, he's
Oh
a
yeah.
freshman at Tennessee. There was a rumor that, and it's a pretty sustained one that I've seen, that he and then I think some of his family members all got to pick out G-Wagons from Mercedes of Knoxville. And like, yeah, I know that Stillwater does not have a Mercedes dealership. I'm aware.
Well, but
But
Oklahoma
that's
City
not
does.
the
It's
point.
not. Yeah,
That's
it's
not the
not. We're
point.
not. Yeah.
I just feel like if that were happening, we would know. Like that would, like, at Oklahoma State, that, as you know, that school's not big enough to be able to fly by that easily, right? But maybe at a school like Tennessee, all the players might have G-Wagons and Hellcats and lifted Jeep Wranglers. I don't know. They might. They might. And maybe, sure, maybe some of our players might have Challengers, because I know there's the Dodge dealership down the street.
There's Barry Sanders. I mean,
I'm sure they get something from that, because I've seen I want to say it was a picture of Ollie where he was
oh, well, I mean, Kendall Daniels had a photo with like a
at,
GMC truck. All the players on the basketball team have had photos
like
with
SRTs and all that
dealerships.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, with Dodges or what I
and
mean,
so like
whatever it
I
is.
I've seen that. It's just I this is the big confusion as an Oklahoma State fan. And I think you can agree with this, and I'm sure the other people that listen to this can also agree with it. We have been doing construction on that campus since I was there, and even before then. It's construction in perpetuity. We have the money. We've been building brand new uh, baseball stadiums, softball stadiums, the football facility, the football stadium, the renovation of the basketball stadium. We have a brand new performing arts center. There's all of these things that have been built. And I know that sports isn't the end all be all, but I hate to break it to people. Those buildings cost a lot more money than a 5-star athlete does. A lot.
Well, yeah, but let's say, for example, that there's that Oklahoma State is putting plenty of money in the NIL deal,
Yeah.
right? Let's say that the NIL deal. Let's say that we are doing it, because it sounds like right now we're just not. Like the money's just going everywhere else it could besides there.
Yeah.
Let's say it is going there. Why do you think in basketball we're killing it at recruiting? I mean, we just got a 4-star guy yesterday, Jeremiah Johnson, who, if you haven't seen the movie Jeremiah Johnson, thanks, Dad. That was a fun trailer to watch. It's a great movie, apparently. Has the same name in it. I would watch it if I were you. Jake, I'm going to watch it tonight. I'm prepared for a quiz in the future. But I got to say, basketball recruiting, it's not like we're not getting Cade Cunningham. And I think Boynton might have gotten the Oklahoma State job because we're getting Cade, or who knows, whatever, right? Like, that one, I'll maybe chalk that one up to an anomaly, because you don't see a number 1 overall recruit, 5-star
Yeah.
guy, go to an Oklahoma State of the like whatever area we're in. That's usually when, like, for example, like Dorial Green Beckham, one of the highest rated recruits ever in the history of college football, went to Mizzou.
Yeah.
And like he didn't go,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It just doesn't.
Yeah.
And now, Grant, his stuff off the field and has derailed his whole career. Cade is not this. I'm just trying to throw out, like, why in football are we just? Because if it's Gundy, then what's next? Because if the answer you got, which I think I know, the answer
Hmm.
is it's Gundy. It's Mike Gundy. He doesn't recruit that well. But at one point we did get Mason Rudolph. At one point we did get Spencer Sanders, who, whatever you want to say about Sanders, you know what? Texas Gatorade Player of the Year. Like,
Hmm.
not, I'm sure we weren't the only one trying to go after him. And then when I looked through the other day to see all of the Oklahoma State recruiting rankings, I looked on 247 Sports. Maybe they're completely
Hmm.
outdated. Maybe on 3 is the place. But when I looked at 247, Oklahoma State was in the 30s to 40s basically every single year going back for quite some time in recruiting
Mhm.
rankings. So it's not as though these past 2 years we've been 50. It just seems like the NIL and the transfer portal is what we suck at and we haven't adapted to. So why? So if we haven't because it's Gundy,
Yeah.
what do we do about it? Like, is there anything like, is it just you and I go, hey, sponsor the podcast? We'll donate every single dollar it sponsor the podcast to Pokes with a Purpose. And you know what? This will be, yeah, this is how we get, because it doesn't seem like it's that deal either. And we're
Mhm.
getting basketball recruits. We're definitely getting baseball recruits,
Yeah.
right? And NIL money or not, transfer portal or not, where guys are coming into the program. I think
Mhm.
basketball this year could be decent. I don't think we're gonna have a top 5 program in the country. I don't think we have a top 5 program in the Big 12 next year.
Mhm.
Sorry, I wish I could say different, but we're doing okay in basketball and baseball. We're actually doing really, really good in baseball. Year over year, we're not winning the Big 12 every single year, so it's annoying, I'm sure. But what can we? What's the next thing? Just get rid of Gundy.
Baseball.
Go for Zach Robinson, who's getting paid $600K a year from the Rams to be their offensive coordinator. I think it is, or he's splitting duties offensive coordinator for the LA Rams.
I don't want to hire anybody that has anything to do with Oklahoma State's program.
Go on,
Like
because I
we
think every Oklahoma State fan would disagree with
I
that.
you're
As
100% right. You're right. But we've got to stop like the keep it in the family crap. It's just not it's not always fruitful like people think it is. I mean, I would love to know how many coaches like why do we have to hire somebody who either went here or coached here before? Why? What and I'm sick of the well, we don't want to just be another landing spot. Every school in the country is just another landing spot unless you are the head coach of Alabama. Because at the end of the day, LSU pulled Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, which we thought was unthinkable. That was unthinkable. That was ridiculous. Money talks. That's it. I went and looked up our I'm on 0-3, right? And so I'm
yeah,
looking. Our average NIL value for football, which I have to only assume that that number is coming down to probably a combination of the people we're recruiting and what they're worth and then what we are giving them. And then it's all combined. Our average NIL value is $15,500. Doesn't sound like a lot. Like that's a quarter of a Dodge Charger, right?
well, but like,
Or
how
a
do we compare
quarter.
that to KU and football, or I mean,
I'm getting there.
yeah,
I
okay.
Perfect point. I've got Kansas pulled up. Kansas average NIL value is 21,000, which tells me that they're willing to pay more than us. Now, Kansas has a slightly worse recruiting class by 2, but their previous rank was 126th. They have moved up 56 spots in recruiting. That's a lot.
For sure. What's like K-State?
Texas. You
What's
want to know
or
Texas?
mm,
Just
probably
for
not.
perspective, 262,000.
Okay. Yeah, that's seems like a lot more.
Oklahoma State for basketball, because you can look this up too, is 26,000.
That's
Let's
higher
see
for
what
basketball than football, which I guess
I,
would make sense because there's less players,
the
period.
the average NIL value for Texas basketball is 7,900. So that should just to me that just tells you where their money's going, right? Like that's what that tells me. Kansas's average for basketball is 46,000. So it's still not crazy for Kansas basketball, right? Based on some of the numbers we're seeing. So, like Hunter Dickinson, for example, his NIL value that is listed on here, approximate, is $278,000. All right. U.S. Kansas State. Let's see what Kansas State is, because I was going to look them up.
I just feel like comparatively in football, both land grant schools, both do not have a large stacked history of ton of success, except for we have a Heisman Trophy winner and several other players that I can name currently in the NFL. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's a bunch of K-State guys that I just can't remember off the top of my head besides the receiver for the Seahawks.
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Their NIL valuation is double ours. Exactly. Double. 31,000. Their national rank between regular recruiting and transfer is 37th. Their Big 12 rank is 6th. Like you said, Kansas kind of means something that they have more than us. Kansas State means a lot more, and that's no disrespect to Kansas. But, like, that's glaring. And if you could sort it by Big 12, I would, but it doesn't let you sort that number. So I was having to type them in manually, which just takes more time. Regardless, it's pretty clear that this is the issue, right? This is the issue. If we're boiling it down to one thing, it is our lack of urgency and it seems like desire, right? To really go and get some of these guys, because now it's different now because, like, yeah, you could hang your hat on Des Bryant. You could hang your hat on James Washington. You can hang your hat on Justin Blackman. You could do all of those things. The difference now is it's a lot harder to find those diamonds in the rough, because when Alabama comes calling for Josh Jacobs and we haven't offered him, it's a pretty easy choice. We have social media now, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a huddle profile. I mean, we have our only James Washington, but there could be 50 other ones. Washington has 3 pro receivers on their roster right now. They have 3 receivers that are going to get drafted. I'm sure it probably helped that they got to go play with Kendall DeBoer in a really fun offense, and they got to go play with Michael Penix in a really fun offense. I don't think it's a coincidence that we had wide receivers start leaving once our offense changed.
It's a good point.
And that was our position. That's our position. The offense changed. I mean, if you're John Paul Richardson, I'd be sitting there going, why the hell do I want to stay here? If this is what it's going to look like last year and no Spencer Sanders, are you kidding me? Bye. I'll go deal with whoever I can at TCU and be closer to home. I mean, at least you'll have fun. But, like, TCU is obviously not what they were last year, and anyone who thought they would be is hilarious. But, I mean, would you rather play for TCU or Oklahoma State right now? Would you rather play for Sonny Dykes or Mike Gundy?
It's not a tough question. Not a tough question. It sucks to like sit here, like, see how many Oklahoma State things I got, above the wall
Yeah.
here or whatever, all type of stuff, and think, what, we could, should, would be a lot better. Without a lot of honestly concrete answers, because I think the concrete answers we can come up with is more money, more money, more money. Money. You
Yep.
know what? We're never gonna like. We should get up to the K-State money. That's why I'm asking. Like, we should be able to double what we're doing. But the Texas money, good Lord, 260 something. It's not achievable. Or Oklahoma State. Like when Texas goes to when Texas goes to SEC, good riddance. I mean, because that's not, we're not competing with these guys. And you and I have talked about every single year going, okay, when's like Gundy's time for him to go? When is the last kind of hurrah of Gundy? And I do think next year would be the last year if this year can somehow, some way get off to a better note. I mean, looking at the schedule here, right? I don't think I mean, there are currently, because it's, granted, everyone's played one Big 12 game now. There are currently 7 way it works mathematically here. 7 undefeated Big 12 teams in Big 12 play and 7 defeated teams, right? Like that's just the way this works here. But like when I'm
Wow.
looking at
Wow.
down, looking down the schedule here. Okay, well, you know what? Cool. We do get to play, um, Cincinnati. We do get to play UCF, BYU, Houston, right? Like if, you know what I mean? If we beat those 4 teams, those are all like the last. I mean, the OU game will suck. Just heads up for anyone who hasn't figured that out yet. But over the last games of the season here, we played 4. We got 8 left, and over the last 8
Mhm.
games, like I hope we can win 4. If we can win 4, we're going to a bowl game. That's a way for Gundy to kind of ride off into the sunset before his 20th year, hand over the keys to whoever. And I would say this just as a final point on the Oklahoma State like allegiance of as an Oklahoma State grad, yourself included here, I know, but
Mhm.
as an Oklahoma State like lifelong fan, would I rather us hire a guy who has ties to Oklahoma State or not? I would rather hire a guy who has ties, a history of the program doing something good. I'd rather us have JW Walsh come in. He's on the coaching roster right now. I'd rather him be the OC than a other random guy, just because of the sheer fact that you can't hold a guy at OC for forever and expect him to want to stay there for forever. Like JW Walsh is going to want to go be the head coach at Southern Illinois, like Larry Fedora did. I mean, he's going to want to like go on to a different program. I don't know if Fedora had any ties to Oklahoma State before he came through, but the point being here is that like Larry Fedora then went to be the head coach at North Carolina. Flamed out, didn't work. Now they've got Mac Brown. They look to be doing just as good. But you know what? Like stuff happens. You move guys through the building no matter what. If you're
Mhm.
good, you're good. If you're not, you're not. I would much rather have a guy on Oklahoma State's roster that I remember the name a little bit, know more about, because it gives me some comfortability about him. And it gives me also thinking a little bit more of, oh, you know what? Maybe he'd stay another year at Oklahoma State if he saw some other offers out there that weren't really up to snuff versus just leaving at the first chance he got. And that's what I would rather have. I would rather it be in that position. We have a guy. I don't think Oklahoma State is going to hire another Mike Gundy ever again. I don't think Mike Gundy's grow on trees. Speaking of as and what I'm saying is I don't think you have a guy who coaches at Oklahoma State for 20 years, coaches at your program for 20 years, has this amount of unprecedented, you know, years of winning streaks in a row, of winning records in a row, et cetera. I think we have 17 years in a row of a winning record. Like that doesn't happen. You don't have the former OC become the head coach, then coach the program for 19 years, and then have a winning record for 17 of those years or whatever.
Mm.
I think it's close to that.
He's an anomaly. He's
He's
an
an anomaly.
anomaly.
I don't think Oklahoma State's going to do that again. So that's why I'm not like, you know what? Hey, if Derek Mason next year was like, man, he coaches a defense to undefeated, gets every single kid to come with him. Cool. If one of these Colorado head coaches, or excuse me, not Deion Sanders clearly, but one of these Colorado coaches goes, you know what? Like Oklahoma State we could hire Colorado's OC right now, this second for next year. And all of a sudden, like, I don't know, some of the guys from Colorado want to transfer to us and we get some notoriety and publicity and it ups our resume a little bit because we know we're going to play in the same conference, etc. But we've historically been a lot better than Colorado over the past 10 years. No ifs, ands, buts about it. They won 1 game last season. They've won 2 so far this season, and that's crazy for them. So I'm I'm going to plant my flag. I would rather Oklahoma State hire an Oklahoma State guy, but I'd also rather us just move on from Gundy at this point. Like I'm good with it. I've seen what this is. I'd rather us move on from Gundy. It's. I don't think it's a Casey Dunn. I don't think it's a defensive issue. Whichever defense coordinator you think is currently at the helm, because 2 heads is not one. We just all know that somebody's calling the defensive plays.
Yeah.
It's not Brian Nardo and you know and whoever else, right? So with that being
Can
said,
I
I would just rather us move on from Gundy, see what else is out there at this point.
I think the most terrifying thing that I see is it doesn't look like we play as hard as we used to. which goes back to what Dakota tweeted, right? Like, it just looks like there's a collective, like, just meh. Like, it doesn't look like anybody really wants to be there. And I'm not trying to attack the players or anything, but there's part of it where it just looks like I don't want to be here anymore. And then there's the other part of it of I have no idea what's going on. Like, it just looks like both to me, and that's that's the frustrating part. And seeing Colin Oliver drop into coverage, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I think, like, I haven't seen a collective just bleh Oklahoma State team in terms from an effort standpoint. Because our, like, pass rush not there, linebacker play not there, DB play not there. I mean, Ollie Gordon looks like he's trying to get his, so that's good at least. But I mean, how many times can we run power before I'm like, okay, let's get this over with? It's not great. It's not great.
It's not, but I think it says a lot that both of us are saying, "Hey, season's over. We're ready for a new head coach, and we're 4 games in and still have the chance of if Oklahoma State blew everyone out of the water and won every game the rest of the year, would win the Big 12." Like you and I are both saying right now, we're
Yeah.
already calling it 4 weeks in. I think that's what is that's the key point of this. All Oklahoma State fans are saying already 4 weeks in, one game
Mhm.
into conference play, burn it all down, start over. Like that
Yeah.
that I think is a huge sign for the program and for every Oklahoma State fan, for every supporter, etc. That yeah, 4 games in with 8 games left on the schedule, we're already like, yeah, on to basketball.
We're just I mean, and this isn't to, like, slight other programs. I think Oklahoma State fans are very in tune with the program because it is a smaller school. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it small, but it's smaller than I think most people probably think of it on the outside. And so that part's interesting, and it always feels like, somebody knows somebody within the program, or knows someone within the athletic department or whatever. And so, like, you and I hear things and we're like, okay. Like, obviously there's information that we're not privy to put on this podcast for obvious reasons that we hear. Um that's what Dakota's for. So, there is that aspect of, like, we're pretty in touch with some of the things that we hear and what goes on, and that almost makes it more frustrating as well. And it makes it frustrating to see how hard your basketball coach works. And it makes it frustrating to see how hard some of the other sports work. And then you go over to football and it's just bland. It's stale. I mean, at least we might not be great this year in basketball, like you said, but at least Boynton's bringing players in. We'll be entertained, hopefully. But like this year, I mean, the people that had any semblance of hope probably know now that they were lying to themselves. Me, I predicted us to win 4 games. This is not, and this isn't like I was right, but I predicted us to win like 4 to 5 games this year, with many of those new additions of the Big 12 coin flips. And everyone was talking about easy schedule, and I'm like, schedule's only as easy as our team is. And right now, they're pretty easy. Team's pretty easy. Iowa State scored 7 points against Ohio. They scored 34 against us.
They allowed 10 points, though. They allowed 24 against or 27 against us.
Better
that.
offense
I'm
than
paying that.
Ohio.
Better offense than Ohio. We'll take it. We upped our average. We were not averaging that much.
Speaking of Iowa State, last thing, because this was the other school, they are at 25,000 NIL value.
Are we
and
at the worst in the Big 12? Then
if I had to take a guess, it's bottom 3 at least. I don't know what other schools would be down there. I don't know what Houston is. It's not. I feel like we've seen the schools that we need to see to feel worse about ourselves. So
fair. I don't want to open up a can of worms here, just because I know an hour and 20 minutes in, probably everyone's tired, including myself, of hearing my self gripe about the football program. So I'll say this: is there any chance that Gundy is playing to the audience he knows he has? Like, is there any chance that Gundy knows this info and goes, "Why not? We don't have a ton of money, so I'm telling everyone this is what we're doing until we have the money."
This is my thing. If it would be a shame if Gundy is too prideful to say that. It would be a shame that if he is letting, and I'm not saying he is, but this is the first thing that popped into my mind. It would be a shame that if he is allowing his disdain for NIL and transfer portal and all of that stuff to take over from the fact of him just saying, "Hey, we don't have the facilities for this," and I mean not as in actual structures, but facilities. Like we don't have what those other programs have. But this is the thing with him. He's always so candid about everything that if that were the case, I feel like he would have said it already. I feel like he would have said, "Hey, sorry, we can't compete." But like you said, there is no excuse for not competing with Kansas State and Iowa State. There's no excuse. And even Kansas in football. I mean, you're telling me we don't have enough money for that? Seriously?
It seems like we don't. From the numbers you're telling me, it seems like we don't.
Or it just seems like we're selling ourselves short. Like I would love to know if any of that donor money if that is taken and put into staff salaries. I'm sure someone could look that up because it's a state-funded school, and donors for a state-funded school act as gifts. That's why, for example, Michigan State's boosters were able to pay off Mel Tucker's buyout. I don't know if we have the boosters for that. You might be right. We definitely would not pay Mike Gundy $35 million for a buyout. You can book that. You can book that for sure. They let Travis Ford coach another year because they didn't want to buy him out. This was like 8. I know that was years ago, but still.
Still.
That was when Pickens was alive.
True. Well, Jake, you know what? With that being said here, I'm going to try to end out the podcast on the best note we can with at least one of us laughing, right? So, that being said, please follow at CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more, and we'll catch you guys again soon. Hopefully with a little bit better of an attitude. But
no game next week.
So gotta be a better attitude. Gotta be a better attitude. Maybe we need the week off to kind of recuperate here. Hopefully I can come to you with an Oklahoma State game day report, though. Trying to go to that game against Kansas State in Stillwater. So
yeah,
we'll see. Thanks so much for everyone for listening and support of the CGA Tour podcast. Please follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter, iTunes, Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, and share the podcast as much as possible as we try to grow this to be a little bit better than it is. Thank you again. We'll catch you guys again soon.